Hello, hello. Happy Monday, start of a brand new week, and I hope you've had a good day so far. I am back on the 30-day challenge. I've had a break over the weekend. I thought maybe you guys would also want a break from me, popping up on your news feed every single day. And today I want to talk about the fifth C of my 7 C's. So if you haven't already caught the previous 4 C's, they were clarity, curiosity, creativity, and competence. And today's C is connections. What do I mean by connections? Connections is basically human interactions. It's about the moment when we make that initial connection with somebody. Either that person could be a complete stranger or they could be somebody who we know very well. And then what happens thereon? I think I want you to think about connection in a few different ways. Obviously there's connections that we make with people we know, and those tend to come much more naturally. You may be sort of meeting with a friend or a family member, and there isn't actually that much really that you need to think about in the way you're going to interact with them. So the difficulty comes for most people is when they're connecting with complete strangers. I think there are a number of people I've come across who don't particularly enjoy networking. In fact, the term networking itself makes it sound like something very official and something that is too businesslike. And it's not surprising that a lot of people don't look forward to it because it feels like they're on show and they have to go into the situation and they have to make small talk and they have to come across as interesting and impressive. And oh God, that's all too much pressure. So if I ask you to replace networking with simply connecting, and just think about it not in terms of quantity, not how many business cards am I going to collect today, or how many of my business cards am I going to part with and give them to people who might come and do business with me. If you replace that way of thinking to just thinking about a handful of people with whom you are going to have a decent quality interaction. And the way to think about the interaction is to not worry so much about you coming across as interesting, not worry so much about you impressing upon these people how amazing you are, but instead to just focus on being interested in the other person. So it takes the pressure off you. I would say it may take a little bit of practice if it's something you've not done before, if you're not particularly good at listening. And it could be that you're someone who's not really sure what kind of questions would be, appropriate or relevant when you meet someone you don't know. So it may take a little bit of practice. But once you've cracked the code of actually taking an interest in other people and taking a genuine interest, I'm not saying pretend to be interested and then, when they answer your question, in your head you're kind of doing your shopping list, or you can't wait to go and meet the next person, because when you do that it's very clear that you're not listening anymore, and that is even worse than you not having pretended to take an interest. So it's being interested rather than always focusing on being interesting. And then the other thing is really thinking about the kind of interactions you would have with the people you meet or you work with on a daily basis, people in your life even, the people you might generally take for granted. And how are you coming across to them? And I have another simple way to think about those interactions, and I call it my AAA rated code for interacting with people you know. The first A is acknowledge. Very often there are people in our lives, and because we know them so well and they are sort of a constant fixture in our lives, we tend to take them for granted and we almost forget that they're there. And we know from our own experience that it's not very nice when you are ignored or taken for granted. So I think acknowledging somebody's presence, acknowledging what someone does for you, makes a massive difference to how they feel about themselves. So it's just another way of taking an interest in someone you know very well. The second A, I should say, is appreciate. So you've acknowledged someone. if someone does something nice for you, it could be a complete stranger. If a complete stranger does something nice for you, it is only right that you appreciate and say thank you. But what about all the nice things that the people in your life do for you on a consistent basis? And perhaps, again, coming back to the point about how we tend to take things for granted and we forget to say thank you. And that is so true of the people that we know very well and people we love, because we almost feel that that's not necessary. And I would argue that however well you know somebody and however much they love you and you love them, there is always room for appreciation and gratitude. And the final A, to be a AAA rated human being, especially in your connections, is to apologize. Because at some point, we're all going to be saying something, doing something that we will later on regret. Or even if we don't regret it, if we realize that we have said or done something that has hurt somebody or that has made someone feel less than they really are, then I think that should give us reason to pause and reflect on what we've just done. And even though it can feel really hard to say sorry and to apologize, I would say that a heartfelt apology is worth so much more than anything else. In that situation, sometimes that's all it's going to take to mend a broken relationship or a relationship that has become seriously fractured in some way. So just a quick recap then. So connections is all about how we interact with other people, how we interact with complete strangers, but also the people who we know and love in our lives. In the first instance, I think you can take the pressure off yourself, especially when you go into things like networking events or you're trying to interact with people you don't know very well, is to stop worrying about being interesting and take an interest in the other person. And the second thing is, when it comes to people in your life, especially people you work with or your family members you know very well, but also strangers, it's really good to follow the AAA rated formula. So it's A for acknowledge, B for appreciate, A for acknowledge, the second A is appreciate, and the third A is to apologize. So with that, I'm going to leave you, and I appreciate very much if you have watched this video either live or on replay. I acknowledge the fact that you're all there and you have your busy lives, and so if you've taken the time to spend with me, then that's really something that I'm grateful for. And finally, just if you've got any questions, comments, or if you've got some feedback on the things I've said today, then I would love to hear it. But bye for now, and I will be back again tomorrow.